Good morning, good morning, good morning, Facebook family and friends. This is Bishop Patrick McNair of the Cross of Christ Deliverance Temple Church of the Nazarene. Thanking you for joining us this morning for they call this March Madness. They call this month the March Madness. I thank God that God decided to lay it upon the heart of man to call it Women's History Month. Why? Because women have long since desired to be heard in our society, and society has overlooked the voices of women for many years. Amen. And women are now just beginning to come into their own. Many women were utilized as tools for the fun of men, yet they were promised things they weren't given. And men took advantage not only of the fact that they did not have a voice to be able to express their opinion, but they also were utilized as gifts for men. Amen. And I'm so glad today that this month is Women's History Month. This is the month in which women ought to be celebrated, and we celebrate women on this month. Now, I don't suggest that you wait, because many times in this day and age, in this society, we always designate a month for something that should be a constant thing. We designate the understanding of Black history, and we condense all of so much history into a month, and think that we are supposed to only be Black all in that month. And then we condense the celebration of women who have paved the way, who have given birth to some of the most powerful men in the world. We give them 1 month to celebrate them when they should be celebrated constantly. Had it not been for the women of our society, the presidents in which America has produced would have never been born. Come on, somebody, y'all not going to talk to me here. Or the doctors and lawyers of the male factor would have never had life. And so we condense women, the women's movement or the Women's History Month, into 1 month, not realizing that the women in our lives need to be celebrated constantly. So on this morning, we here at the Morning Inspirations Cross of Christ Deliverance Temple celebrate the women in our lives, the women of the world. Amen. I know that it's hard to be a woman in this society because we call this a man's world. But like James Brown said, it would be nothing without a woman. Amen. It would mean nothing without a woman. And so we thank God for those who have paved the way, the Mary McLeod Bethunes, it slips my mind. I just want to quote them all. I should have pulled them up all my book, but I didn't. Amen. But we know all of the women of the world, amen, that have paved the way, women who have flown around the world, amen, women who have created various things, amen, and Sojourner Truths and all types of women of that magnitude. Not only African American women, because there was some professional and some powerful white women and Asian women and Puerto Rican women as well. And so this is not a denominational month. This is a month to celebrate every woman of the world, because it wasn't African Americans' voices that simply weren't heard. It was women of the world who were not, or who could not, voice their opinion in this quote unquote man's world. And so we don't understand why the balance of power have now shifted. It's because they are coming into their own. They are realizing that they are assets to the country, assets to the lives of the men of this world. They are the bloodline. Watch this here. I didn't say the lineage. I said the bloodline, because have it not been for the woman, there would be no men. Are you listening to what I'm saying here? Now, we know that Adam was created first, But without Eve, Cain and Abel would have never been created. Y'all not going to talk to me or if you know what I'm talking about. Without Eve, Cain and Abel would have never been created. So, Pastor Rita, I celebrate you on this morning. Pastor Barbara Berry, I celebrate you on this morning. Pastor McNair, I celebrate you on this morning. All the women that are connected to this world that have made an impact, not even the ones that simply made an impact. Why? Because there are some women who have not made an impact, but because they have produced some men or some other women, those women have created an atmosphere of success around our country, in our world. Amen. And so we celebrate the women of the world on this month, in this month, and for the rest of our lives. One of the greatest women that ever walked this earth to me was my mother. Why? Because when I had gone astray, I was a good boy. I went to school. I tried to do the best I could. But I had gone astray in my life, and every other person in my life gave up on me and told me that an addict is what I was going to be for the rest of my life. But my mother kept on praying. Are you listening to what I'm saying? It was a woman that laid out on the altar. It was a woman that got down on her knees. It was a woman that cried out to God. It was a woman that believed her son would change. It was a woman that when I changed, opened her door back up to me and said, "Come in, my son." It was a woman that believed in my change. It was a woman that fed me, clothed me, and made sure the scars on my knees were bandaged. It was a woman that brought me my first bike. It was a woman that gave me my first push. It was a woman that gave me my first inspiration. Come on, y'all not going to talk to me up in here. And so I'm going to celebrate all women simply because it took a woman to believe in me to the point in where I am now. Are you listening to what I'm saying on this morning? And so I celebrate y'all. I celebrate y'all on this morning. Pastor Rita, you have a powerful broadcast. I always listen. It's a powerful thing. It's women that's leading the church today. It's women that's on the Facebook preaching the gospel in a way that touches the lives of the people. It's women that's holding up the bloodstained banner. And even though men are coming into the revelation that they need Christ in their lives as well, but it's a women that fill up the church. Y'all not going to talk to me. It's women that go to the altar and lay out before the Lord and cry out to God for change. It's women that intercede when we as men do not pray at all. Come on, y'all not going to talk to me here. It was a woman that went to the king and told him what God had showed her. It was a woman that realized that I can't lie no more about Abraham being my brother when he's my husband. Come on, somebody. Y'all not going to talk to me up in here. Brothers was lying. Men were lying. They was making up stories just to get the resources or get access passes to the places that they wanted to go. But it was women that would hold up the bloodstained banner and let the redeemed of the Lord say so. So I want you to understand, we can't condense the history of women's impact on this world into 1 month. Why? Because it will never allow itself to fill 1 month, because they've been so explosive in society for so long. But we as men have tried to shut their mouths and close their voices off to the expression that they could have made and the impact they could have had on the family, the country, and the world. And so in this month and for the rest of our lives, we will celebrate all women of all nationalities, women of all colors, and women of all accomplishments. We love you this morning. We love you this month. You are a blessing in our lives. And so I want to show you something. Back in 1978, that's when this Women's History Month started. And I want to share something with you. Go with me as I share it with you. I believe I can share it now. Amen. I want to share this with you. Amen. And I want you to just go with me just a little while.
Now, Now, kicking off Women's History Month on this March 1st, and we want to turn now to Nightline co-anchor Juju Chang to give us a little history lesson on how it all grew into the celebration we now know today.
It's March 1st, which marks the beginning of Women's History Month, a month-long celebration to honor women's often overlooked contributions to American history, like those of Elizabeth Blackwell, the first woman to officially become a doctor in the United States in 1849. Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, all People to Freedom. But what's the history behind Women's History Month? It all began in 1978 with only a week-long celebration. It was organized by the Sonoma County Commission on Women. The week of March 8th was selected to correspond with International Women's Day, which had been celebrated around the world on March 8th since 1911. The movement began to gain momentum, and the following year, other communities and school districts initiated their own
freedom fighters, the First Lady of Civil Rights, and Mother. But never have they been called complacent. Dolores Huerta, Rosa Parks, and Frances Grice. Women whose actions change life not just locally, but on a national level by setting a precedent for others. I'm Jessica Greenwell with Iris Hill. Today we feature three individuals who fought tirelessly for the rights of others. As feminists, catalysts, and activists. Welcome to Civil Women. Few have contributed as much to the advancement of oppressed groups as Presidential Medal of Freedom winner Dolores Huerta. Huerta was born on April 10, 1930. Raised by a single mother who overcame the odds by opening a large hotel providing shelter to low-wage workers, she spent her childhood in the highly diverse community of Stockton, California. After starting a career as a teacher, Huerta saw the misery of students living in poverty and felt called to a life of fighting injustice. With the legendary Cesar Chavez, she founded the National Farm Workers Association, but that was just the start of her accomplishments. She went on to successfully lobby for unprecedented gains for farm workers, including disability insurance and the right to unionize. As revolutionary as her work for agricultural laborers was, her fights for women were no less significant. Often partnering with feminist icon Gloria Steinem, Huerta traveled across the country on behalf of the feminist majority, encouraging women to run for office and leading to significantly more female representation at every level of government. She remains a social justice warrior, and we at the Empire Network PBS were honored to interview her during Women's History Month.
Who's got the power? We've got the highest number of women ever that are now running for political office at all different types of levels. And I do believe that we have a political reawakening that is happening in the United States right now.
Dolores Huerta is a living legend. We had a packed auditorium here at Valley College listening to her, and she got everybody on their feet, everybody wanting to work together toward a better world. Everybody saying, yes, we can. It's still so relevant and so current because there's so many concerns that we have today in the world.
I hope that the Me Too movement is just the beginning. It's not just about sexual harassment, it's about equal pay for women, it's about equal service for women. And to say, well, what is a feminist? Well, a feminist is, number one, somebody who stands up for women's reproductive rights, stand up for gay rights, stand up for immigrants, stand up for labor unions, stand up for our environment, right? This is what a feminist is. And so the men can also be feminists.
I hope that a lot of students here at Valley and throughout the area will be inspired by her to see what they can do in their lives if they just pay attention to what she's done, and if they keep the persistence that Dolores has demonstrated now for so many decades.
I think sometimes people think that movements just happen. And maybe in today's world with the internet and with devices, and you can bring people together fast, as we have seen with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the Me Too movement, with the DACA students, that you can get information out there, and people are kind of on the same wavelength, you might say. But in order for movements to be sustainable, I think you've got to build organization. And when you think about the United Farm Workers, we actually organized for 3 years before the strike. So when the farm workers came out on strike, it wasn't spontaneous, like, Caesar walked through the field and the workers came out on strike. No, we organized workers in their homes, having house meetings with them. And so many of the workers that came out on strike, especially the leadership, they were already organized. They knew what we were about. When we talk about working people, we have to talk about labor unions. And you hear the news media and you hear these corporations, and they talk about, labor unions, they call big labor is a special interest. How can you be a special interest when the majority of the people in the United States are working people? So the strike didn't end up with just getting an increase in wages. Farmers were then getting only like 50 cents an hour. We went for collective bargaining for the right to organize. And so that was much more permanent than just getting a little wage increase. It was, we had to have a contract with conditions in the contract that if workers were fired, we could take the employers to court, to arbitration, to get them back their jobs and get to be able to get a medical plan for them and a pension plan for them. So it was not just about the wages, but getting the benefits and getting representation on the workforce, in the workplace.
The farm workers union developed, and the two people who founded it were Cesar Chavez, whom almost everybody knows, and Dolores Huerta, who was fully equal in organizing and creating the union. But Dolores never really was recognized as much, and many students today don't even know who she is. She's an extraordinary individual who has always been trying to bring young people into positions of responsibility and influence.
I think we do have a solution to the issues that we're facing, and that is our educational system. Because we have the structure, but we just have to change the content of what we teach. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, when during World War II, we will not take one dime out of our schools or one dime out of our libraries, because education is the foundation of our democracy. I do believe that the reason racism exists in our country, and misogyny, and homophobia, and bigotry, lack of science, is because in our educational systems, from the time that our children are in kindergarten, we do not teach what the contributions have been of people of color. Native Americans, who were the first slaves, whose land we sit on, yet we never thanked them or compensated them for the land. The African slaves that built the White House and the Congress, that isn't in our school books, right? The Mexicans that came in here and not only, tilled our fields, built our railroads, Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, people from India, that were brought in to build infrastructure by the United States of America. And we have to teach that in our school books. If not, we're never going to end the racism, and our children of color will never get the dignity that they deserve for what their people did to build the country. And our Anglo children, we can prevent them from having the poison of white supremacy and white privilege. We can make that happen. It's got to be done through education.
I think ultimately it's the whole community's responsibility to make sure that people of color are educated about this history and about what's possible. And teachers at every level, from the kindergarten, the pre-K, all the way up to the professors and the highest you can go, educate yourself about the people that you're going to be teaching. I think that's the respectful thing to do.
Professors can motivate students. They can encourage students to get involved, and aside from doing a good job of writing papers, how are you going to really be able to implement or put it into practice?
Being able to see the contributions that people of color has made to America and to the world, that changes the game for a young person, because if you're not talking about me, then I'm tuning out. You want me to be something great, and you have to show me something great.
Watch a woman like her just rise to the notoriety that she has and work so hard for other people is like I wanted to be that, even though I was an immigrant. And she gave me hope that despite my immigration status, there were things that I could do for other people that would make me and little piece of my world a better place.
Student involvement, community involvement is crucial, it's absolutely key. We're the majority, but if people stay home and they don't vote, then we lose. We've got to be politically savvy. When I saw the movie Dolores, I kind of reflected back on my own life, and there's one scene in the movie where they show Cesar Chavez, Larry Leon, and then all these men, and they're signing the contracts. So we finally went after this big, huge boycott when we got 17 million Americans to stop being raped. I'm not in that picture. Now I did the boycott, okay? I negotiated the contracts with all these growers, but I'm not in the picture. I'll tell you why. Because when we were sitting down, after getting ready to sign those contracts, Brother Larry Young came up to me and he said, Dolores, do you mind if I have your seat? I was sitting next to Caesar. And I said, oh, of course, Larry. I got up and walked away. Women, don't ever do that.
I just appreciate the candor that she brings to the female perspective, especially as a woman of color, because it's not always heard in the media and definitely not in the public.
Women are totally needed in our society, and not just as mothers and wives and sisters, but we need women as leaders, because we as women, we have a different intuition, we think differently, and if there's somewhere that you feel that you should be, you put yourself there. Because remember this, a woman's place is not only where she wants to be, but a woman's place is where she needs to be. And if somehow you're not in that space where your voice is needed, you step into that space. You don't have to wait to be invited.
A woman who didn't wait for an invitation to change history was Rosa Parks. Parks has been revered as one of the most influential people of the 20th century. She was born in my home state of Alabama in 1913. Exposed to segregation at an early age, Rosa walked to elementary school since black children were not allowed on the bus. At 19, she met Raymond Parks, a member of the Montgomery NAACP. The two were married and she joined the organization as a youth leader and a secretary. On December 1st, 1955, after her shift as a seamstress in a store, Parks refused to obey the bus driver's order to relinquish her seat in the colored section to a white passenger. Following her arrest, Parks called NAACP President Edie Nixon. Within hours, the Women's Political Council, a group created to address issues where black bus patrons took charge. Black community leaders organized a nonviolent bus boycott that lasted 381 days. A young Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was appointed spokesperson, and the boycott continued for more than a year. In June, the federal district court ruled that the city's segregation policies were unconstitutional, and that was upheld by the Supreme Court in November. Montgomery announced its compliance the next month, a year after the protests began. Although Rosa Parks wasn't the first black person to refuse giving up a seat, her quiet bravery inspired a unified front and played a pivotal role in the freedom movement. She received numerous honors, including the Medal of Freedom, like Dolores Huerta, and the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor. Parks passed away at the age of 92 in 2005. On February 27, 2013, Congress dedicated a statue to Rosa Parks in the United States Capitol, approximately 100 years after her birth.
That is why this statue belongs in this hall.
And she has other such tributes around the country, but the newest was unveiled in San Bernardino, California, during February of 2018.
What a beautiful day to commemorate the unveiling of the Rosa Parks statue here in downtown San Bernardino.
What's important to remember is that just as Rosa Parks was a symbol of resistance, she was a symbol of courage, symbol of perseverance. San Bernardino has been through a whole lot, and San Bernardino is the picture of resistance, perseverance, and courage. And I would love for that always to be something that we look at. San Bernardino stands strong, but before San Bernardino stood strong, Rosa Parks sat strong.
Calling on our mother Rosa. Could she speak to us of courage and equality? Would we be so moved as moved she? Would we? Can we try that right now? Let's all stand up. Some of us are on our feet, some of us are in our chair. If you can stand. Let's sing together, we shall overcome. Let's see if we can.
that I learned was that she really fought for human rights. And to see a lot of people coming together, doesn't matter what the race, to celebrate her, it really proves how much she has unified the nation just in her spirit alone. Everyone just loved her, and I understand why.
I think that when we study the history of Rosa Parks, there's so much. The fact that she is part Native American is extremely important. The fact that she is a woman is extremely important. The fact that she was from Alabama is extremely important. All of these factors, each one of us is going to take a part of that, and we'll identify with that. And here was a hero, a shero, who stood up for something that was so important. And what she fought for wasn't just for the African American. It was for all of us, quite frankly. And it's something that we all need to live up to.
But you know, Rosa Parks was not just by herself. The whole boycott that she participated in was a plan. And they had made this plan at the Highlands Center in Tennessee. So they already knew what they were going to do because that was, that was a strategic plan that they made ahead of time.
I'm humble to be able to do an icon like Rosa Parks. What I was thinking when I sculpted it is that she's a hero, a heroine, I guess, and that that's what the world needs is more people who lead by example. And hopefully that's what they can take away from is that they can go out and do good deeds amongst the community. It's kind of bittersweet because my mother passed away and she modeled for the statue. She sat in my studio and we talked about the civil rights movement and what she was doing at that time. And the glasses that are on Rosa Parks were my mother's. They're molded and bronzed.
As society starts to get farther and farther away from the civil rights movement, they tend to forget the importance of it, especially now with the importance of making sure that everyone is treated the way that they should be treated. And when you look at a statue of Rosa Parks, it brings back everything that she stood for and everything that we should stand for and continue to fight for.
Parks' singular act of disobedience launched a movement. The tired feet of those who walked the dusty roads of Montgomery helped the nation see that to which it had once been blind.
We shall overcome.
Rosa Parks said in her autobiography, My Story, that it isn't true she gave up her seat because of being tired at the end of a workday. What was the real story? She was tired of giving in. Parks lost her job during the bus boycott and had a challenging time finding work. In 1957, Rosa Parks and her husband moved to Detroit, Michigan, where she served on the staff of U.S. Representative John Conyers. A few years later, a future civil rights icon would move from that very city in 1962 to make her mark in San Bernardino, California, which is also home to the Empire Network, PBS. Frances Grice discovered that San Bernardino schools were segregated by race and not equal. In response, she helped co-found the Community League of Mothers, a grassroots coalition that spoke for African Americans and fought to end that policy in San Bernardino schools. With the help of the NAACP, in 1973, the California Supreme Court ruled that the school district was guilty of discrimination, thereby ending segregation in San Bernardino schools. Grice also founded Operation Second Chance, a technical school that trained thousands of low-income youth, welfare recipients, and workers displaced by plant closure. She was bestowed numerous honors, including the Presidential Award from both Presidents Reagan and Bush in the White House Rose Garden. Grice mentored dozens of community leaders across the Inland Empire until her death on New Year's Eve 2017 at the age of 84.
Frances always was. Frances was an icon in this community.
Well, everybody met Frances when Frances came to town. I mean, she came from the Motown town, you know. She came right in, like dynamite. She started going to all the organizations. She started talking about where she was from and some of the things that she wanted to do. And so she got involved right away.
I met Frances Grice through Keith Lee. Keith Lee was the county administrative officer over economic development. And he was a student of Frances's Operation Second Chance. And he looked at what I was doing with Youth Action Project. He said, you need to meet this woman named Frances Grice. And went over to her office off of Hospitality Lane, and it was history ever since.
Dorothy Height wrote a grant in the early 80s through the National Council of Immigrant Women. And so I became the director of the one in San Bernardino. And so my first day of getting the contract here, I was with a contract in my hand and didn't know what to do. Well, Frances had already been there and done that, right? And so I was looking for a place to have an office, and I went to this building downtown, and she sent her staff. She sent 2 or 3 other people to talk to the owner to make sure I got an office. She gave me my first set of furniture. She gave me reams of paper. That was just the kind of person she was.
When I came to live in San Bernardino proper in the 1980s, that's when I would have seen this beautiful woman with this stark green eyes who had a presence about herself and spoke very comfortably and was not afraid to speak her mind about anything. That's when I probably in my brain said, that is the lady that I have been hearing about all of these years.
They don't know we had to dodge bullets. They don't know that the Ku Klux Klan was walking down East Street. They don't know that Harry Reebottom had to sue beans to get in a restaurant, to eat a Chinese food. They don't know all the conditions that we had to go through. They don't know that our children had to develop a program to run into a room that we said, if they started to riot, we'd have to tell our kids, run in a room and lock the door and stay there.
When she came to San Bernardino, she just heard the voices of the mothers that really felt like their kids weren't getting the best. And so she just felt like she was going to do something about it. And so she organized a group of mothers, and then they eventually became the League of Mothers.
While she was doing this fight for integration, there was some negotiations going on between the school district and the community. One of the issues was busing. They had taken the buses away from the children who lived on the west side of town. So if they wanted to go to school across town, they had to walk. The League of Mothers gave them holy hell over it, and as a result, the district gave back the busing opportunity.
So Frances's involvement in desegregation was because she wanted to make sure that all kids had access to a quality education.
She knew African American young people needed to be trained. She knew that there was funding available, and I think that was her whole drive to start that training program.
My sister found that being a part of Operation Second Chance equipped her with a particular skill that would help her in her adult life.
When I was an assembly member, I was in Sacramento, and here's this young man walking into my office, and he was president of the NAACP in Stockton, and he was working for this big company and all that. I said, don't I know you from somewhere? He said, yeah, you remember me in San Bernardino. I went to Frances' training program. So anywhere you went, pretty much, you could run into somebody who was successful, who had been from San Bernardino and had gone through Frances' program.
She has a great deal of responsibility for me being in the position that I am today, just because of her advice, her direction, and the ideas that she shared with me.
We owe a lot to Frances Grice. for that visionary thinking that she had, and honoring that visionary thinking.
She could pick up on what needed to be done and go ahead and start doing it.
When she talked to you, it was like she was talking to your soul. Like literally, she can motivate you. She can make you want to fall out on the ground because you're not doing enough. And then pick you back up and put you all back together again and help you get the direction that you need to.
She was an amazing person. And she won't soon be forgotten.
Continue to speak. Continue to defend. Continue to work in the community. That would be the greatest legacy that she could have.
Every day that I wake up is an opportunity for me to do better than I did the day before. And I think that's the message to young people. And we use Frances as a model. And if we aspire to be, the best selves, then I don't think there's anything that we can't do.
We are women of faith, and that faith energizes us to move those mountains.
Right now, nobody in this community remembers. Nobody even remembers a Frances Rice sometimes. Very few people are here now that was here in the 60s and the 70s. So they don't know the struggle we had.
Frances, much like Rosa and Dolores, was placed in a situation where she had to make a choice.
Accept the problem or take it on.
It can be argued that if Rosa hadn't given up her seat, or if Dolores had never led a protest, or if Frances had allowed schools to remain segregated, the world would be a very different place. Thankfully, they didn't.
Their legacies reveal the personal power that we all possess to make a difference.
And thus are true role models for courage in the face of injustice.
We hope that you've been both inspired and enlightened. For the Empire Network PBS, I'm Iris Hill.
And I'm Jessica Greenwell. Thanks for watching.
We thank God for all the women of our society. Amen. We thank God for everything that was said and done in the hearts of the women of our society. Amen. And so we glorify God for them. We thank God for every contribution that women has made to the making of the straightening comb, to the making of hair products and things of that nature. They have contributed to our society in a major way, and we as mankind have tried to close the mouths of such great women who have had the authority and power and the faith to stand up, rise up. Women who have stood in the gap and laid out on the altar, who have interceded and proceeded to the next level of our society in such a way that it would change the course of history. And so this was just a few women who took the initiative to change the world. So while we in America, while we are in the world, while we are on this side of the earth, let us hold up them who have paved the way, the women of this world, the women in our lives, the women around the country, and the women of our society. Let us push them to the forefront of the greatness that's inside of them, instead of trying to hold back their mouths from ever speaking what could change the world. Thank you. Thank you, women of the world. Thank you, women of my life. Thank you, women of the lives of the people that are listening to me or the people that are around the world. You have made a major impact. Your voice have been heard. You have stepped out of the shadows and into the White House. Michelle Obama first. Not first, but Michelle Obama. Mrs. Clinton, Mrs. Bush, all of these women stepped up in the time in which it was needed to push their husbands into the greatness of what they were called to do in the running of our country. And so it was these women, the Nancy, the Ford wives. Amen. The JFK wives. They pushed their husbands into the greatness. Miss Reagan. They pushed their husbands into the greatness of what they were called to do in the running of our country to help unify a people as best they could. And so we lift you up. Michelle Obama, we thank you. Amen. We thank you for your contribution as well to the children of our society in believing in them enough to help them to understand that obesity is not what they should be aspiring to or should be happening in their lives at this moment. They should be in good health, with good knowledge, with good wisdom, and with good understanding to become one day what Michelle was for us in this day. We thank God for Sister Biden, amen, for becoming the president's wife. She's going to push him into the greatness of the calling of God that's on his life. We thank God for Trump's wife. She tried to do what was needed to be done to push him into the greatness of the running of our country. We thank God for the women of this world, because had it not been for them, in the words of James Brown, had it not been for them, it would mean nothing. God bless you. This is Bishop Patrick McNair, and we're celebrating in this month and for the rest of our lives. But we're going to talk about this particular month, because this particular month is the month in which we recognize, not celebrate, but recognize that we ought to celebrate constantly the women of our lives who've pushed us into the greatness of what he has called us to do. Be encouraged. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for morning inspirations. Once again, ladies, I tip my hat to your success. God bless you and have a great day. Bye-bye.